Alright folks, it is time again. We are in the end of August, and that means I now am joined with the others, and I start my Oscar nomination predictions for the 97th Annual Academy Awards taking place on Sunday, March 2nd, 2025, honoring the films of 2024. For those that are looking for new award show predictors, my name is Brian. I've been doing Oscar predictions since, I would say, for the films of 2016, but didn't start doing this early nomination predictions until 2 years ago. So I've been a long time award show predictor, and we are now going to be getting into the status of this upcoming Oscar season. Obviously, the summer has just about to wrap up, and I want to get this done before one of the film festivals begins on Wednesday, August 28th, which is, of course, the Venice Film Festival. And, of course, before the Toronto International Film Festival on September 5th. That's when it starts. But before we talk about what's going to be coming up and stuff like that, and what you will see my predictions, let's just mention of what has been released at the moment. Now, obviously, Sundance, there is only one big breakthrough movie I think that has gotten the biggest one is A Real Pain, Jesse Eisenberg's movie. And then, of course, at the Cannes Film Festival, Neon has been on a hot streak lately for picking the right film to get them the Palme d'Or, which is Sean Baker's Anora, winning the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. But there has been a lot of other movies that have been released at Cannes that are in potential Oscar consideration, including Emilia Perez, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, All We Imagine as Light. Those are basically the main ones you have seen, but there have been a couple other films that have been released, like Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, and Kinds of Kindness, which the latter might not get any Oscar nomination, but Furiosa will most likely get a couple of technical nominations only. But Anora, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, are probably two, and Emilia Perez are probably the three big movies with All We Imagine the Light in potential consideration for others. But there is still a lot of movies that will be coming out throughout the festival, so things might change around a bit. Now, I want to mention that I am only predicting the big 8 categories. Best Picture, Directing, the Acting categories, and the Screenplay categories. And unlike all the other ones, I am doing it in the reverse way. I'm starting with the screenplays first, acting, directing, and Best Picture in last. So you will see the timestamps of where they will be in this video. And for these predictions, you will be seeing a couple of snapshots I've got through my account on the Awards Expert app made by Justin, aka Brother Bro, the Oscar expert, although no one is an awards expert, especially since it is August. So yeah, and you will see my predictions throughout the entirety of the video through using that app. And I just want to mention what you'll be seeing on how I rank them is not the most likely to win, but as I will state that the ranking I have is probably the most likely to get nominated. So with that being said, let's start up with the screenplays. So for the screenplays, normally I would usually name the writers that are usually nominated, but sometimes when I say somebody early in the month, it might change. So I'm not going to reveal, say who are the credited screenwriters until when we get closer to, I would say, December and the final Oscar nomination predictions. So for adapted screenplay in alphabetical order, I'm going to be saying this, are Conclave, Dune Part 2, Queer, The Room Next Door, and Sing Sing. So there has been some recent words that The Room Next Door, Pedro Almodovar's first English movie, and Netflix's biggest candidate at the moment that premiered at Cannes, the French movie, Emilia Perez, are both potentially going adapted, because The Room Next Door I've heard, is based on a novel, and Emilia Perez, it's going to be kind of like the scenario with In the Loop, the Armando Iannucci film that got that adapted screenplay nomination in 2009, where it's just based on one character from the TV series The Thick of It. Apparently, I heard there's a character from a TV series that's in Emilia Perez, that's in the movie, and I think it's probably a strong supporting character. I'm assuming. So if it is true, then that's most likely going to be going adapted. But it is a musical, and musicals are kind of hard to get in this category. Like, they can't get well in for acting and like directing, but screenplays is kind of hard unless you're like La La Land. But that was because it's about the industry. Doom Part 2, the first one obviously got in here, and it kind of feels like with Part 2 being more of a complete film from what I've been hearing, because one thing I would like to mention is I don't watch these movies until post-Oscar season, because I do this movie marathon, because if I watched all of them and my personal favorite thing does not win the Oscar, I would get pissed off. So it's just kind of like, ever since that, I made that promise ever since I saw that Best Picture incident, even though I didn't watched all the picture nominees of 2016. I talked about them many times, so I'm not going to go there. But since the first one got in, it is kind of a bigger promise that Part 2 makes a lot of sense to get in, because we were kind of weird questioning if the first one would have got in, was it, 3 years ago, since it's 2021. But it was not the Writers Guild nomination, but was the BAFTA nomination that convinced us that Dune was a thing for adapted. So, yeah, it looks like Part 2 will follow that up. This is going to be a big year for Luca Guadagnino with both Challengers and Queer. With Queer getting the later release date and having another probably the big LGBTQ plus themed movie so far, it makes a lot of sense for Queer to get in here, like what is probably going to be the bigger Guadagnino film candidate, although he has gotten a strong year. Conclave, obviously Edward Burgess' follow-up to All Quiet on the Western Front. It is kind of a thriller, so I'm a little bit hesitant of putting in there. And Sing Sing, if we're doing the Coda scenario, I do have it at, as you can see, not also the most likely one, but I do have it also probably the most likely to win at the moment if it's going that Coda route. So, as for other considerations, as you can see, I have at least 7 other candidates. The bottom 10 I have are Emilia Perez, Nickel Boys, which I really should be considering more. As you might see, I don't have it high at the moment because I just don't know about that movie. It's just kind of the question mark. I'm Still Here, the newest one from Waldo Sauce, that's premiering in Venice. The Piano Lesson, obviously, although Fences got in, but Ma Rainey's Black Bottom did not, so an adaptation of a August Wilson play sometimes does not work, and I don't think The Piano Lesson would do. Night Bitch, that's going to be a question mark, especially since it's a horror film. And then A Complete Unknown, that could also be as a music biopic, that's not going to happen. And Joker Folie à Deux, the first one got in, but this could be like I heard it almost like a Moulin Rouge scenario for this movie. I'm not sure, because I have not watched a single trailer for most of these movies. That's one thing I don't do as well. I don't watch mainly trailers, because I want to be as completely 100% blind as possible when I first time see these movies. So, yeah, Emilia Perez, as I talked about, it's been kind of heard that there's a character from a TV series that actually has probably a Franklin role in the movie, so that's the reason why Emilia Perez is kind of the moment that adapted at the pre-existing character rule, as we saw what happened last year with the season with Barbie, so that's the reason why Emilia Perez could be a potential candidate, but we'll have to see how much many people would think the movie has a lot of stronger dialogue, evenly with the musical numbers, to get it in the writing categories. On to original screenplay, and it's kind of weird, the ranking I have here for the most likely to get nominated to the least likely at the moment is all alphabetically. So I have Anora, Blitz, Hard Truths, A Real Pain, and Saturday Night. So Anora is, of course, the Palme d'Or of the Cannes Film Festival. I will talk a little bit more. I think it might be more of a stronger candidate to win, more so than, well, I can actually talk about it now. So many people could be assuming Saturday Night might be the People's Choice Award winner at TIFF, because here's the thing. if you win at TIFF at the People's Choice Award, you're guaranteed a strong candidate to win a screenplay Oscar, like at the screenplays. If you go from Green Book to now, we saw this with Green Book, Jojo Rabbit, Belfast, and American Fiction last year. Nomadland almost happened, and The Fablemans was kind of stuck in the third in the original one between Banshees and everything. So if Saturday Night does win at TIFF, then it is going to be battling out with Anora, because Anora is also the strong chance of Sean Baker winning this category if it's not for directing, which I'm not really sure who is the director frontrunner at the moment. Blitz, the big British movie. I know Hard Truths, a lot of people have a little bit doubts. I kind of am going a little bit here with Mike Leigh here to get at least nominated. He has not been nominated since another year in this category back in 2010, so might as well probably give him a chance to see if he can get in. Although Bleecker Street is the film's distributor, so that might be a bit of a problem for Hard Truths to try well here, but the BAFTAs could potentially do it. If he does not get in at BAFTAs, I don't think he won't get in. A Real Pain I feel confident in, especially since it's kind of like the big Sundance hit that would probably get in here, but at the moment I feel like if Sean Baker, if Anora is a stronger Best Picture candidate than Saturday Night, if Baker gets in for director, or I forget who's the director of Saturday Night, but I know Jason Reitman and Gil Kenan are the writers of the film. Who's the director of Saturday Night again? Let me see. Where's TIFF? Yeah, it is Jason Reitman. So if Saturday Night does win TIFF People's Choice Award at TIFF, would it be the screenplay frontrunner? Because Reitman obviously has not won an Oscar yet, because a lot of people thought he was going to win back in 2009 for Adapted for Up in the Air, but he and Sheldon Turner lost to Jeffrey Fletcher for Precious, based on the novel Pushed by Sapphire, and the thing was, Precious, I thought, was more of a stronger Best Picture candidate. And that's the thing, if Saturday Night wins TIFF, then it's between that and Anora. And it depends on which one sweeps the screenplay race that year, like American Fiction did. Unless if both of them go even, I think it will depend on who gets in Best Director. And at the moment, since I feel like, a little heads up, I have Sean Baker more likely to get in for Director than Jason Reitman, I feel like they're going to go in the Palme d'Or way and give it to Anora. As for other considerations, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, I did just bumped out of the list here, and I really should be considering this because it was the biggest, one of the biggest, best reviewed films that came out at cons. Obviously, the movie is notable for the director being a fugitive in his own country. Well, basically, he escaped his own country of Iran for basically, I believe, criticizing his government. And if he goes back to his home country, he's going to get arrested. There was no way in hell Iran was going to submit the film. But just recently, Germany did submit The Seed of the Sacred Fig, so it is most likely going to get that international feature nomination, probably in second place behind Amelia Perez, depending on how the shortlist goes. So even though France has not submitted Amelia Perez yet as of this recording, because a lot of the submissions would come in by the end of September. Challengers would be more of a Critics' Choice thing. I know The Brutalist, a lot of people do have it high, but I don't know how that movie's going to do. Same thing with Nickel Boys. I'm not really onto it. His Three Daughters, I believe, was another movie that came out at TIFF last year, and it's getting released this year. And Maria, just for, even though Spencer and Jackie were not in this category when they were both out, but I feel like maybe the concept might just do it. It just really depends on how Stephen Knight makes it a heavy dialogue-driven movie compared to, Lorraine's directing. So, and Maria, I'll talk about that more when we get to Best Actress. So at the moment, because of how I think which movie is stronger to be a Best Picture candidate to win, I think it would be Anora for original. Before I talk about the acting categories, as we start with supporting actress, I would like to mention something here that I have no idea who to place where, specifically in the supporting actress and lead actress categories. Because I've been hearing words and words of oh, this person's leading, oh, this person's supporting. It's just I can't jump into many conclusions, and some people were leaving Clayton Davis from what his words say when I don't know, because no one hasn't seen the movies yet. Like, no one hasn't seen Joker Folie à Blitz, or The Room Next Door yet. And I think, you know what, I'm not going to predict these women until when how the movie is, like, depending on the film's reactions, and the FYC yet. So you would not see me put Lady Gaga in Joker Folie à Saoirse Ronan in Blitz, nor Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton in The Room Next Door until an official confirmation is confirmed who's leading or who's supporting, based on either FYC ads or when the movies have officially been premiered. So with that being said, for supporting actress at the moment, I have Danielle Deadwyler in The Piano Lesson, Anjanou Ellis-Taylor in Nickel Boys, Selena Gomez in Emilia Perez, Isabella Rossellini in Conclave, and Zoe Saldana in Emilia Perez. So I have double up the Emilia Perez ladies with both Saldana and Gomez. And it's interesting because with Gomez being a previous recording artist, now have been getting a lot more into the acting industry thanks to Only Murders in the Building, and with the upcoming revival of Wizards of Waverly reboot of Wizards of Waverly Place. That's kind of a bit of a tongue twister, if you know what I mean. So she's been kind of getting more into the acting side a lot more recently. Zeldana, this could be her chance to get an Oscar nomination, because obviously she would not get in for the Avatar films because they don't recognize animated performances, let alone animated performances in live action films. Anjanou Ellis, there were probably some talks of her to get in for Origin last year, but I think if there was anything for Nickel Boys, I'm going to go with her. Rossellini, definitely overdue for an Oscar nomination. I know Brian Rowe, aka the awards contender, just released the top female actresses working today, or that are alive today, that have never been nominated for an Oscar, and Rossellini was an honorable mention, and she's pretty close to getting it with this upcoming movie here. I really do think she should have been nominated 2 years ago for Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, if animated performances were eligible, and I know a lot of people think she was very overlooked for Blue Velvet, which that movie was very overlooked over that, which that's an amazing film, of course, that got that awesome Best Director nomination for David Lynch. Probably my favorite David Lynch movie I've seen. And then for Deadwyler, a lot of people have her at number 1, not because also August Wilson acting roles makes a lot of sense getting in here, but with her missing for Till 2 years ago for Best Actress, over getting a sympathetic nomination to Ana de Armas in Blonde, and with the grassroots campaigning of Andrea Riseborough to Leslie and Michelle Williams going in leading for The Fabelmans, yeah, I think they need to really make that up for her. So I don't know who is a clear frontrunner at the moment, but I feel like Deadwyler makes the most sense to get in to make it up, because Rossellini could have a very small role in Conclave, but holds a big secret from the plot, from what I could be hearing based on... I have seen the trailer for Conclave, because as a Catholic, and somebody who is kind of interested in the College of Cardinals, and especially for conclaves when for an election for a pope, because that's been kind of a little bit of my interest of seeing, like, the history, like, knowing about, like, seeing which cardinals are eligible to vote for a future conclave, because we don't know how long the next conclave is going to be, depending on how long Pope Francis will be staying in office. So if he's ever going to resign, or he's going to continue until he, retires, I mean, to do his physical health. Well, you get the idea. So yeah, I'm just very curious about Conclave, but she could have a very small role that could do something. As for other considerations, obviously I mentioned Gaga, Ronan, Swinton, and Moore. I did not know where to put them in, so the only two I can think of are Leslie Manville in Queer, which could give her a second Oscar nomination since Phantom Thread, because she really should have gotten nominated for another year, because she was fantastic in that role. And Fernanda Montenegro in I'm Still Here, which I believe I said that in an original, if I got that title correct. As you know, she's working with Walter Salles again, because she was nominated for lead actress for Central Station back in 1998, and she's playing the older version of the character, so that could potentially give her another Oscar nomination just to make up for it, because obviously she lost to Gwyneth Paltrow in Shakespeare in Love, and Central Station was probably the runner-up for International Behind Life is Beautiful. So I almost had her in here, but since I'm not going big on I'm Still Here at the moment as the strong international candidate compared to Amelia Perez, I had to take her out. Supporting actor, I have Samuel L. Jackson in The Piano Lesson, John Lithgow in Conclave, Clarence Macklin in Sing Sing, Stanley Tucci in Conclave, and Denzel Washington in Gladiator 2. So if we are doing the Coda route with like Troy Kotsur, Clarence Macklin makes the most sense to be like the Troy Kotsur of this year, especially from what I've been hearing about his performance. Samuel L. Jackson, even though he just got an honorary Oscar back in 2021, he's now getting his second Oscar nomination, most likely, after Pulp Fiction. So many people think this could be a chance to give him a career acting Oscar win, or more specifically, his first competitive Oscar win, I mean. Now, I know a lot of people are still kind of very questionable on Gladiator 2, but if there was one thing everyone is knowing, that if there is one category that Gladiator 2 is probably the best bet to get in somewhere in the Big 8, is supporting actor for Denzel Washington, because apparently he's playing a villain role, and if that does, that seems like a lot of things, but it really depends on how that movie does. I'll probably talk about that more when we get into Best Picture. And Tucci and Lithgow, I think, if I'm correct, Lithgow has never been nominated, I'm assuming. I don't think so. Has he? I know he has been in a lot of film works. Yeah, he has been nominated twice for The World According to Garp in Terms of Endearment, so he has not been nominated for quite some time. Like, he was very great in Bombshell. I thought he gave the best performance in that movie as the villainous Roger Allers. So that really definitely should have been. And I know if voice performances were eligible, I wonder if he would have been in for Shrek. Oh, he was in Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't remember him in that. But obviously he's been known work for his television work, so in recent years. I don't remember where he was in Killers. I have to look that up. But yeah, he's definitely overdue for his third Oscar nomination. And Tucci, obviously he got in for The Lovely Bones. I have not seen that one yet. I have seen Julie and Julia. I can't tell because I really didn't cared about any of Julia Child's scenes or even her husband, so compared to the scenes in Amy Adams, so I can't really say about Tucci's performance in The Lovely Bones, but I think Tucci makes the most sense because he's overdue for like a second nomination, but Lithgow is also kind of overdue for a third one as well. As for any considerations, if Venora really performs well, Mark, I don't know how to pronounce it. I can't pronounce it, but you see the name. Like, maybe a potential candidate for supporting actor. The collaboration, another, like, Two Pope scenario written by Anthony McCartan with Germany Pope and Paul Bettany, but I have not heard word much about it. Kieran Culkin, I've heard he's probably going to be category fraud here for A Real Pain, but I don't know if his momentum will kind of drop as, like, the big supporting performance at Sundance, like John Magaro in Past Lives. If Queer does something, maybe Drew Starkey could do something. I believe he's playing probably the lover of Daniel Craig's character, and maybe Harris Dickinson in Blitz after his magnificent breakthrough role in, well, for some people, not me, in Triangle of Sadness, there could be a potentiality he could get in, but I'm not sure, because I feel like Mark from Menora would make the most sense out of the bottom five to get in place of either one of the Conclave stars, or if Gladiator 2 does not do well, is Denzel going to miss? Probably. But we know for a fact Denzel Washington would not get nominated at the BAFTAs. For Best Actress, I have Amy Adams in Night Bitch, Carla Sofia Gassian in Amelia Perez, Marion Jean-Baptiste in Hard Truths, Angeline Jolie in Maria, and Mikey Madison in Honora. Now, you might see in this ranking, why do you have Amy Adams at number 3? Shouldn't you have her at number 1? But you got to keep in mind, this ranking, I'm doing what is the most likely to get nominated versus the most likely to win. And if there is anybody that is probably the most likely to get nominated, is without a doubt Angelina Jolie. Natalie Portman managed to get in for Jackie, and although she missed SAG and BAFTA, Kristen Stewart did manage to get in for Spencer. So Jolie could miss like a couple of awards, like SAG and BAFTA, or Critics' Choice, depending on how Maria is, which is one of my most anticipated films of this upcoming season, because I really have dug Lorraine's past two female biopic movies, especially Spencer. That was fantastic film. Definitely one of the best of 2021. And Kristen Stewart definitely should have won that Oscar. So I'm very curious, and this would be Jolie's only third Oscar nomination. She has not been nominated since Changeling back in 2008. I know she won for Girl Interrupted, so yeah. But the biggest thing is that this is probably going to be Amy Adams' Oscar to lose. A lot of people are thinking, oh, this is going to be another white actor or actress career win for a very Oscar-baity movie. But here's the thing. Number one, Amy Adams just turned 50 years old a couple of days ago. Yes, 50. I'm kind of shocked she's 50. I thought she was in her early 40s. So that means she has to get a colonoscopy soon, if you know what I mean. Number two, you have Marielle Heller as the director of the film, and her past two films, Can You Ever Forgive Me and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, have gotten acting nominations in, with Can You Ever Forgive Me with Melissa McCarthy and gave Richard E. Grant his first Oscar nomination of his career, and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood got Tom Hanks his first nomination in supporting and his first nomination since Castaway. So with a female director like Marielle Heller, that could really do something. And this could be one of the better Oscar career acting wins because it is for a performance in a horror film. And usually the Oscars rarely recognize horror. They rarely do because they are completely against it, especially if it's really effed up horror movies like some of the Ari Aster films like Hereditary or Midsommar or Beau's Afraid or even Titan back in 2021. They would not go something like that. Or any horror films in general, unless if you're like Get Out or something like that. And this could be the one to do it for her. It has a December release, because the thing is, Searchlight originally had this plan to go straight to Hulu, but they changed it to a theatrical release, so they're telling us something, and putting in December, another great move right there. You got a female director who has been on a roll for the past, with her two films getting 3 acting nominations combined each, and even almost with Can You Ever Forgive Me, almost pulling an upset for Adapted. So that makes a lot of sense for Adams to be, and also there's usually this special TIFF acting award they usually give it to, and they've been a little bit on a streak lately. They just did it with Brendan Fraser for The Whale. Last year they did it with Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, so we'll talk about that for actor. And this year it looks like it's going to be Adams for Night Bitch. So that's another key aspect for you to potentially win in the leading acting categories. As for the other 3, now Honora being a big Oscar candidate, it makes sense for Mikey Madison to get in. This could potentially become history with Carlos Livia Gasson to become the first trans woman to be nominated here, which that would be, I think, the first ever transgender person to ever be nominated for an acting Oscar nomination. And that would be pretty historic, to say the least. And Marianne Jean-Baptiste reuniting with Mike Lee makes a lot of sense. I know Bleecker Street is kind of very questioning, but that's the thing. I do feel like BAFTA will probably support her on trying to get her second nomination. Like, she was fantastic in Secrets and Lies. As for considerations, as you see, like I did with the supporting actress category, I do not know where to put Gaga, Ronan, Moore, or Swinton in until further notice. No one's really talking about here Robert Zemeckis' new movie, which is kind of a reunion, Forrest Gump reunion with him as the director, Eric Roth as a writer, Tom Hanks and Robin Wright starring in it. And Robin Wright was another actress that Brian Rowe had just mentioned is the top 10 actresses never got nominated for an Oscar, because a lot of people thought she would have been nominated for Forrest Gump, but no, she has not. And this would be her first big major role. I do have The Princess Bride, so I'm feeling nostalgic about that. And then for Cynthia Erivo in Wicked, that's just a random one, I would say, because number one, she is playing the Wicked Witch of the West. And then obviously, if you're going by the Broadway adaptation, Idina Menzel won the Tony for that, for her performance. And another thing to note, of course, Margaret Hamilton, the original Wicked Witch of the West in the original Wizard of Oz movie, never recognized whatsoever for the Oscars. No performance of the Wizard of Oz, never got nominated at the Oscars. Not Judy Garland, not any of the actors who play. I don't know all the actors' names. I forget. I don't know who the actors are. But, you know, the actors who played the Scarecrow, Tin Man, Lion, the Wizard of Oz. But if there was anyone in the cast that would have most likely in that original 39 film that would have gotten nominated for an Oscar, it would have been Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West. That would be considered probably not also one of the biggest acting snubs of the 30s, but probably one of the all-time biggest acting Oscar snubs ever. Because if the Oscars were today, that role would have won. So that's the reason why I kind of have a review in here instead of like her and Ariana Grande, because I feel like she's the more likable one, although maybe it could be more bigger for Wicked Part 2 if that's a thing. So yeah, we'll have to see. And of course, we'll see what the word is about Joker, Folie à Deux, Blitz, and The Room Next Door. For actor, if you know where I mentioned about that TIFF acting award thing, you might know where I'm going with this if you see who's at number 1. For Best Actor, I have Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown, Daniel Craig in Queer, Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes in Conclave, and Joaquin Phoenix in Joker, Folie à Deux. Starting up with Phoenix, I just have him here at the bottom because he obviously did one for the previous film, so we know that for a fact. It's just that when you see the other bottom 5, I'm kind of questioning about them. Chalamet just kind of entered when we found out A Complete Unknown was coming out, although I'm very hesitant about that December release date because we saw what happened to The Color Purple last season, so... But since Chalamet is kind of like a darling favorite for many young generation of moviegoers, that and Zendaya, they're going to go all over him. And if Chalamet would get in for lead actor, it would most likely be for Complete Unknown instead of Dune Part 2. Ralph Fiennes would finally get his long-overdue 3rd Oscar nomination. He has not been nominated since The English Patient, and many people think he should have won for Schindler's List over Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive. So that's why he really should have been nominated for the Grand Budapest Hotel. Gustav H is one of the best movie characters of that year, and one of the best comedic ones, and probably the best Wes Anderson character ever made. And then, after his long time as James Bond, and still now going on as Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig is on the stage to get his first Oscar nomination, most likely. And a lead role as a gay character in a Luca Guadagnino movie makes perfect sense. And Coleman Domingo, post-Afterglow nomination after getting in for Rustin, and after his fantastic villainous role in The Color Purple, which almost made him my personal supporting actor lineup, but it's just that it was a very strong year in that category. But he's now also kind of like in the Coda scenario, where if Sing Sing's the picture frontrunner, it also makes sense to him being the lead, and especially like to take it in the frontrunner status to be the win here, especially since he won that TIFF special prize last year. So, as for the bottom 5, now, obviously, I'm not really sure about The Brutalist, so I can't really know where Adrian Brody is at. Like, yeah, he has not been nominated since his win for The Pianist, which, that's astounding. He has not been nominated since then, but he hasn't, like, had a major role for him to be in a big Oscar consideration since, like, I would say maybe The Grand Budapest Hotel. I know he was in Blonde, but that doesn't count. I don't have any words about the collaboration, so I don't know where Paul Bettany is going to go. Maybe this could potentially give, after he did not get in for Black Klansman, maybe John David Washington could get in for The Piano Lesson, but it might be a little bit tough for him. Obviously, Russell Crowe did win for the first Gladiator, so maybe Paul Mescal, after he got his he got casted after his freshly Oscar nomination for Aftersun, maybe because he's playing the younger version of the kid in the first film. I forget the character's name, but instead of bringing that original actor back, Mescal is going to be taking the role. And maybe just because he's on a hot streak lately and probably an MVP actor of the year so far, Glenn Powell could be more of a Globes and Critics' Choice favorite for Hitman, the Richard Linklater movie, of course, that premiered last year, but it just came out a little bit earlier in the year. It probably won't get as far as probably the Globes and Critics' Choice, but Powell was like on an MVP role if you look at his filmography this year. For directing, I have Sean Baker for Anora, Steve McQueen for Blitz, Edward Berger for Conclave, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, and Luca Guadagnino for Queer. Berger, after he did not get in for All Quiet on the Western Front, I do think this would be a makeup nomination for him, because if he was nominated for All Quiet 2 years ago, he probably would have won over the Daniels for an upset, probably. Anora, All the Palme d'Or winners distributed by Nia have been on a hot streak lately of getting in this category. We'll talk about that once we get into picture. Luca Guadagnino having both this and Challengers. I feel like Queer would be the one he would most likely get in. Emilia Perez would be the top non-English film to get in this category, especially being a musical, and what is Netflix's top-tier candidate, although Netflix has not been nominated for the past 2 years. Steve McQueen could become the first colored male director to win this category. I do think he would get nominated, but I'm not sure about the win, though. Like, BAFTA most likely, it's just how Blitz is as a directing-wise movie. Like, when you compare that to 12 Years a Slave, it's kind of tough. But that's kind of hard to compare that to. So I just don't know much about Blitz. We'll see, because that movie is not going to premiere until the New York Film Festival, which I believe that's the closing or opening film, I forget. I think it was the opening film. So we'll have to see what New York says about Blitz. So as you can see, I do not have Denis Villeneuve in here for Dune Part 2. Now, a lot of people do have him as the potential frontrunner because it feels like a complete version, and a lot of people feel like if he would win anywhere this season, it would be, like, Dune Part 2 would be like Mad Max Fury Road, where he would win directing at Critics' Choice, but nowhere else. But at the moment, I feel like if they want to give him for Dune, it would be for Dune Messiah, kind of like how it would be like Dune Messiah would be the Return of the King for the Oscars. So that's the reason why I don't have Villeneuve in here. A lot of people are pretty much assuming if Sing Sing is going to be in, like, Coda, it would not get in for directing for Ecuador, especially since he would most likely win for adapted screenplay. It could be a movie where the directing would not be a standout compared to the writing and the acting-wise. Unless if it is a strong candidate and gets in for directing, then that just shows more strength to the film. I do have potential 3 international candidates here, although Pedro Almodovar is an international filmmaker, but making his first English movie with Room Next Door could be a possibility. But then you have Walter Salles for I'm Still Here, who has been in the industry for quite some time. He also did The Motorcycle Diaries. And Mohamed Rasulullah for The Seed of the Sacred Fig. Since it was like one of the biggest reviewed movies that came out of Cannes, maybe why not? Todd Phillips did get in for the first Joker. I don't know if he would get in for this one. I'm still very questioning about Nickel Boy, so it's just like, I don't know, like, obviously this is from a documentary filmmaker, Ramel Ross, who did Hale County this evening, which got nominated. But it would be, I'm kind of questioning, is Nickel Boys going to be like Nyad, where you had a documentary filmmaker making his first narrative feature, and it gets very divisive. We saw what happened with Nyad last year with Elizabeth Shaw Fashala and Jimmy Chin, from Free Solo to Nyad. Now, the biggest thing is there going to be a woman candidate for director? At the moment, I don't think so, which might spark some backlash from the news media, but if Night Bitch is better acclaimed, and if it's like a strong candidate, like if it gets highly acclaimed, I don't know, maybe Marielle Heller would get the directing nomination. That would really depend. Especially would be big for a horror film, because that could really be something. But it's just like, if Night Bitch is a very acclaimed movie, it's divisive, then I don't think she won't get in. So this could be a year where we might see the hashtag Oscar So Male controversy once again. But as you can tell, for the international pick, I picked Jacques Audiard. He has been in the industry quite some time of it. He did A Prophet back in 2009, which was nominated. So a lot of people kind of know where he is and who he is, and I do think that would be the Sean international candidate. So for Best Picture of August, I have Anora, Blitz, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Joker Folie à Deux, Queer, The Room Next Door, and Sing Sing. So Sing Sing, basically the Coda route, the Saga Ensemble win is probably now more of this decade the key award to win the Oscar for Best Picture. Last decade was the screenplays at the Oscars. This year is not an Oscar category, the Screen Actors Guild for Ensemble. Parasite kind of started that up, but it was like Coda, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Oppenheimer. Sing Sing kind of follows that route, especially for the ensemble it has. I feel like that could be the film to do so why it would be at top for Best Picture. Like, it had already been released, but probably the bigger Oscar buzz for frontrunner status won't come until when we get to the winter months. Anora, the thing is, from now on, any neon film that wins the Palme d'Or or Cannes Film Festival, they get 4 things. Well, actually 5. They obviously win the Palme d'Or, of course. They get nominated at the Oscars for Best Picture. They get nominated for directing. They get nominated for original screenplay. And they get a physical media release on the Criterion Collection. We saw that, of course, with Parasite, Triangle of Sadness, and Anatomy of a Fall. It didn't do well with Titan because, of course, it was an effed up horror movie. But all 3 of those movies all had the same thing. Won the Palme, got in for picture, directing, and screenplay. Original screenplay, to be precise, for all 3 of those, including Anora. And gets a Blu-ray release on the Criterion Collection. So Anora would definitely follow that up. Dune Part 2... I feel like it would be the first one where it gets double-digit nominations, but Villeneuve would still miss directing. But I do think it would definitely probably be strong in the technical categories. Well, it really depends. Conclave, Focus Features is definitely going to be behind all of this. Amelia Perez, the top Netflix film and the top non-English movie I have. Queer, if you're going to have one Luca Guadagnino movie to get in, it would definitely be that one. Blitz, the big British movie. Now, Joker Folle Adieu, I don't have it really at big of the moment. Well, I haven't done predictions in the technical categories in the app yet. So just having with the film in and in for Joaquin Phoenix is kind of questioning, but that'll all depend on how Venice does it, because the first film won the Golden Lion back in 2019. A complete unknown would just be, I would say, like Darkest Hour, where it gets in for actor and a bunch of text, but doesn't get in the picture lineup. And I have The Room Next Door being this year's Women Talking and Past Lives, where it just gets screenplay and Best Picture, because a Pedro Almodovar movie is probably overdue for a Best Picture nomination. Talk to Her pretty much got close, because Almodovar got in for directing and he won original screenplay. And with me not really knowing where Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton is for acting-wise, that's why I have The Room Next Door as like the Women Talking Past Lives slot, where it just gets picture and screenplay. For the bottom 10, Nickel Boys, I'm not really sure how that movie is going to do, so we'll have to wait and see. I did originally have The Seed of the Sacred Fig as the Women Talking Past Lives slot, where it gets in picture and original screenplay, specifically screenplay. But now with Germany being submitting the film for international, I feel like it's now not going to have that scenario. I'm still here. Maybe if they want to spread the global attention for a lot more international films, that could be the thing. Real Pain, Sundance favorite. Challengers kind of came out a little bit early. If it was released last year, it probably would have gotten in for original screenplay over May, December, I would say. The Piano Lesson, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom didn't get in, so I don't feel like it's going to happen unless if it is a bigger film adaptation of it compared to Fences and Ma Rainey's. Night Bitch, we'll just have to see how the reaction is. If it's divisive, I don't think it won't happen. Maria, it's probably unlikely other than Angelina Jolie, because Jackie and Spencer has not done it yet. Saturday Night, if it does win the People's Choice Award at TIFF, I will put it in for Best Picture. And then we come to Gladiator 2, and it is probably the big massive question mark, because obviously the first film did win Best Picture, of course, and deservingly so out of the 5, even though I really loved Aaron Brockovich. It really would depend on how that movie does, because first up is Wicked had just pushed his release date with Gladiator 2, so they're both now released in the same weekend, but they're both pretty infamous Oscar bait movies, because you have one based on a Tony Award-winning musical, and you have a sequel to a Best Picture-winning Oscar film. A sequel, to be precise. Oh boy, so I don't know how that will do. Technical-wise, yes, and for Denzel Washington, but the thing is, Ridley Scott has not been on a great hot streak at the Oscars lately since The Martian. I know All the Money in the World got Christopher Plummer a supporting actor nomination, but in terms of like big top tier wise, like Best Picture contention, it hasn't been since The Martian. And we saw The Last Duel and House of Gucci being both box office bombs, and Napoleon. All 3 of those movies have been infamous Oscar bait movies. especially House of Gucci and Napoleon. I mean, Napoleon got 3 tech nominations. It almost could have gotten a lot more. And could have gotten Past Life spot for Best Picture. That was the worst Oscar movie of my marathon last season. That was just not that good. It was way too long. Oh boy. I just hope this movie, I would not be surprised if Gladiator 2 is over budget as well. I would not be surprised, but it would all really depend on how that movie does. It's not going to be premiering in any festivals. The November release date could be something, but that was the same month that House of Gucci and Napoleon were out, so I just have it at the bare bottom because I do not know what's going to happen other than Denzel Washington. So this wraps up my Oscar predictions for the month of August. If you want to tag along with me throughout the season, you can hit that subscribe button and follow me at the Awards Expert app under BryCrowell. So we'll see how Venice and TIFF will do and what other releases will come out in September and early stages of like the international feature submissions and maybe words of the New York Film Festival and the lineup for the BFI London Film Festival in October when we do those nomination predictions again for the Big 8 in September.